So you asked about my side project. Yeah, so that started out, I always have some kind of side project going on, especially like to test out, like to try to keep learning. NativeScript is newer to me, and I have built an app with NativeScript before, but it's still like there's still a lot to learn. So I came up with a side project of a recipe app because my fiance, he's listening. Hi. We both like to cook, and he's actually a usability guy. He's like, he was doing usability testing at Epic, which is an electronic medical record company, and has done a little bit of usability work at my company for a couple things. And so we noticed if a couple of you guys like to cook here, I don't know if you guys are looking for recipes online, and they're like, the text is all like really long, and then they're like the ingredients are like buried somewhere, and they're like flipping back and forth. My hands are dirty, and so he was always complaining about that. It's like, why can't it just like be like, how come it can't like highlight the ingredient when you're on it, and like why can't it just be more user friendly? So we're like, well, maybe we can try to like design something, and so I've just been playing around with that, try to like make a more user friendly design. So we can do some user testing out there for people who like to cook. It's not ready yet, but working on it.
If you could add something, and maybe this is something that you've already thought of, but sometimes I'll see a recipe and I want to double the portion size without having to like add, do the calculations myself.
Yeah.
So like something just to say, okay, do you want just one portion of this, or if they put like a number 2 somewhere, it'll automatically recalculate.
Yeah,
Ingredients they have.
that'd be cool. Yeah, there's a lot of recipe apps out there. So this one that I'm building, it's really going to be like posting your own. But if you're able to like put in like a basic amount and then add functionality in where it like can double or triple or whatever, yeah, I think that would be useful. All right, so we're going to move into usability and design principles. Does anybody know anything about that at all at this point? Any experience with it? Okay. So we're going to talk first about usability heuristics, and then how to evaluate usability using heuristics. There's like 10 points that we'll go through. And then tomorrow, hopefully we have enough time for everything today, but tomorrow we're going to go through Gestalt principles, which are just like certain design principles, very specific to this specific person. And then we'll go through some specific tools you can use in your own applications, like how to add certain kind of fonts and how to use color correctly and things like that. So, one second here. Oh no, I lost it. All right, so any thoughts? What?
Because people want to be able to find stuff on your web page without having to go down 10 and 12 levels before they can find something.
Yeah, so like,
Find it within
want people to get frustrated?
Yeah.
Any other ideas?
I sort of thought that they were like taught together, like sure you can get information onto a site, but who cares if it's ugly and no one wants to look at it.
Exactly. Yeah, not every developer thinks that way. Once you like start coding, it's funny. It's like, well, as a user, I want a usable product that looks nice and is efficient. But when you're coding it, it's like, I'll get to that later. Like, CSS is hard. So I just want to get this like thing to work. So sometimes it's a battle when you are actually working on a problem or working on a project, and you want to get this thing to work, and then you also want it to be like as user-friendly as possible, or you want it to actually be usable for someone. So basically, design, what I'm talking about with design specifically is how it applies to software projects, and it's not purely aesthetic. It's actually a combination of aesthetics and how to carry out specific goals for the site. so the function that the website or that application is supposed to do. If you think about any web application out there, there's some kind of purpose for it, right? It's either like trying to sell you something, or lead generation, or give you some kind of useful information, or a new site wants to give you like the most current articles, fastest, and people need to be able to navigate properly. And so another note is that with web applications, like, they cost a lot of money. So as a developer, like, you don't always think about that. Like, I just want to like figure this out. I want it to work. It's fun. But like, they cost a lot of money, and the person, like, I see from the other side, like, I have to make sure that my client is happy with what we give them, because if they have something like, oh, my code is perfect, it's like really complex, and it like works really well, and it it took me so long, and I figured this thing out, and I spent all night doing it, like, nobody cares if your users don't use it. So so it's really important to keep that in mind. Another note is that you want, if people don't trust your brand, like, if you this is where we'll get into a little bit more about like color theory and things like that. If people get frustrated, or they don't trust your brand, or there's something that sets them off, they're just going to get frustrated, and they're going to leave, and they're going to go somewhere else. So so we're going to get into that. So usability heuristics for user-centered design. There's a set of 10 specific heuristics that I'm going to go through, and then today I'm going to try to get through these pretty quickly so we have enough time to do the activity. But basically, there's 10 heuristics that I'm going to go through, and then they're going to help you think about how you evaluate a site's usability. And they kind of overlap a little bit, but each one is pretty distinct. So visibility of system status. This is pretty straightforward. It's really popular now. It's gotten better, where the most common example is like a loading indicator. So, all right, you're waiting for a page to load. If it was just a blank screen, like, you'd be like, what's going on? I'm going to go somewhere else. At least if it's loading, like, maybe you're going to leave anyway if it takes more than 3 seconds, but at least there's an indicator. Or if you're uploading your files, you want to know like how long is it going to take. So typically it'll like give you an indication of where it is in line. You'll also see an example of like on a shopping site or on a site. I don't know if you can see that very well, but there's typically steps. Like, this has 6 steps. If you're purchasing something, you're going to want to know like where you are, so that you want to know at what point you're actually like paying. You don't want to give the wrong information too early and say you walk away or something. You want to know where you are in that process. So there's steps that show you where you are. This is an Airbnb pop-up of this visibility of system status is displaying, I don't know if you can see it very well, just because some of you guys are pretty far, but some of them say like, oh, Tuesday, June 6th, there's only 2 spots left, and then, another one only has 1 spot. So you kind of know like how full certain days are. It just gives you more information about the system. And then here's another example is flights. So the one on the left, this is a good example of using color too, but we'll get to that later. The one on the left is on time. It gives you the locations, the scheduled departure, the estimated arrival, and then same thing here, but with the delayed and the updated times. Number 2 is a match between the system and the real world. That's really important. Systems should speak the user's language, familiar words, phrases, concepts, rather than something really system-oriented or using acronyms or something that would be hard to understand. Also, aside from language, making something like appear to be more natural. to user and give them have more empathy for the user's understanding of what that system is. And I'll give a few examples. So the first one is language familiarity. So the one on the left is Blue Cross Blue Shield, and it's giving some information and some background context about preventative care. It's not just giving terms that don't make sense, and it's giving some information and an easy to understand format. And this is a law site, and there's a couple points here that have these really long names and a bunch of things that just would be hard for the general person to understand. In terms of making something seem more realistic to a physical thing, skeuomorphic design is kind of swinging back and forth in popularity. It was went away for a while, and now it's coming back, and Apple has done a pretty good job with making their designs look pretty realistic compared to a physical compass. Next one would be this is a cool one. So it's actually matching up the user's credit card. If it's an American Express, it will know where the number goes, where the name goes, and makes it a little bit. It makes it feel more real. A couple other examples could be texting feels like you're typing or passing notes to someone. Viewing photos on Facebook feels like you're turning pages in an album. Choosing a movie to watch on Netflix often feels like you're browsing shelves on a store, even though I think most people won't really even know what that feels like anymore after a while. I don't know if anybody uses Medium, but it's a blogging platform, and when you use it, if you're highlighting text, it actually looks like highlighted text if you're putting a note on it. So familiarity in those applications just makes it a more enjoyable experience. The next one is user control and freedom. And so users often choose system functions by mistake and will need a clearly marked emergency exit to leave the unwanted state without having to go through extended dialogue. So this is really, to summarize, give people the option to undo their mistake. So, for example, in Google, you can upload files, but you can, if it's uploading and taking too long and you're oh, that was the wrong thing, or I gotta go, I'll do this later, you can exit out of it, you don't have to wait for it to finish. And then, say you click on a pop-up or a modal on a website, and it was totally by mistake, you don't even want to read anything it has to say, even if this doesn't have very good language on the buttons, but even if it did, if you just clicked on it by accident, you might not even want to read anything, so you should give them a chance to cancel it. Another example of Google, they give you an option, so this is an example of someone deleting 92 conversations. Say if that was an accident, you can undo it. They'd also do something similar with sending an email now, which is pretty cool. If you send an email and you have a typo in there, or it's the wrong person, you can undo it quickly if you get it there fast enough.
Yeah, really quick.
Yeah. Consistency and standards. This is a good one. They're all good actually, but this one there's a lot to it. So you should not have to wonder whether different word situations or actions mean the same thing. So kind of overlaps a little with the language from the other one. But a couple other more different examples are how you apply UI elements. So for example, you don't want to put radio buttons on your app if you want someone to select multiple. You would want to do checkboxes. That's pretty standard. And then you want to, I'll show you guys some more examples of these, but you want to follow well-established conventions for layout. You want to design for what your users' expectations would be. Just keep in mind consistency across your application and consistency across what the standard is with other sites. And then creating consistent visual elements throughout your site. So an example, before I get into the other ones that I have, is actually I'll show you this first. Here's an example of layout specifically. So pretty standard navigation design these days is logo on the left, sign up on the right. There's an example of search on the left and on the right. I guess I've seen it more often on the right, but I guess Airbnb has a pretty good site, so I'm not going to say they're wrong. But logo on the left still. And so I also have seen logo in the middle, but it just seems more common to have it on the left. So, I mean, these are pretty big websites, and they're all keeping, things pretty standardized. Another example of this sort of thing is with, I was reading about a research study about a shopping website where they were selling winter equipment, and they decided to call their shopping cart Shopping Sled or something like that. And they did some research on it and realized 50% of their users didn't know what that meant. And the other 50% didn't, they only figured it out because it was in the same location. So even if you're trying to be creative and come up with words that would be kind of cutesy, at least put it in a consistent spot, but you can't guarantee, there's no guarantee that shopping cart was even well designed, but at least using the right language would have been more helpful. Using consistent visual elements. Google is I guess I have a lot of examples of them, but they created this material design concept with a really cool website. Actually, let me see if we can. You can go to it. There's a link to it on the slides if you have them. I don't know if I can click on it. Let's see. With all kinds of information. We'll get back to this a little bit more with color and typography, but it helps you come up with a visual design system by just looking at their standards that they've created across their applications. And so what that's done for them is now they have consistent elements that they can use on mobile and web, and it's across all their devices. And Angular, which is a framework, which we're not going to get into in this program, but it's one that I use at work. It's a JavaScript framework, and it's developed by Google, and so they have now Angular material, which is creating consistent Angular material components that you can just use when you're developing with Angular. So it makes things much more consistent. You barely have to design your things anymore. Error prevention, I think this is a really hard one to implement or to execute, I guess. So I have a bunch of examples on this. Basically, the fault is always on the software, just so you know. The user should not be wrong, because if they're wrong, user errors will always happen, and your job is to avoid that from happening in the first place. So a well-designed software application will do its best to avoid any kind of mistakes. Slips are oh, I'm in autopilot and I clicked on something and it was the wrong thing. Mistake would be more your goals with the site aren't really matching up appropriately. So
I was on a website the other day and I was trying to order some chicken for lunch, and on the menu it said that the price was $10, and then but every time I clicked on it, it was jumping up to $17 in the shopping cart, and this was before delivery fees and everything else.
Well, then that was their fault.
Yeah,
so I don't want to say they're never wrong, but I'm just
experienced that.
Yeah. So that was a software bug.
Yeah, which cost them my business.
Okay, so what I mean, there's going to be bugs in software, but really you want to, user error is what you want to avoid from happening. So I'll give you a few examples. So this is the Southwest booking, flight booking software. An example of building in restrictions into your app to avoid mistakes would be not allowing a user to set their return date before their departure date. So there's guide rails set in place, and it's structured in a way where that won't allow a user to make a mistake like that. because if you're, it could be easy to do if the software allows you to do it. And also use of color, so you can clearly see like the 8th is the departure date, it's in blue. It's grayed out, the days in between, so it's a little easier to understand what's going on. This, it's a little blurry, but basically spelling is a common issue. If you're typing in, like, this example, etymologic research for high-quality headphones, I don't know how many people would spell that correctly, but Amazon is giving you some really helpful links based on just typing in a couple letters. So giving search in general is really useful for that reason, because we'll get to that more in a minute. But another error prevention tactic is giving defaults. So pulling in like, all right, I want to snooze, but it's actually giving some suggested times before, rather than just giving the user the ability to click on the calendar. And then also Uber, when you're typing in your phone number, it automatically puts it into a more readable format, so it avoids the error of maybe putting in one extra number or something. Now, you can do that in a number of ways other than just design. You can build in, like, validation on your forms for pretty much any input, but also like making it look more readable for the user is nice. Then this one is a pop-up from Apple's photo application that's saying, do you want to delete your 24 photos? And so, yeah, it's nice to give them the chance to say yes or no. But in addition to that, it's also clearly labeled. It's not just confirm or okay or whatever, or yes or no. It's delete 24 photos is the title. Are you sure you want to delete these photos? And then finally, your button says delete. So it like clearly makes the user know, like, do you really want to delete these 24 things? So having good labels on your buttons is another thing we'll get to more in accessibility, but it's also helpful for preventing mistakes. And again, this one's a little bit blurry on the big screen, but this is an example of another booking site, just to give you an idea of like removing memory burden. So what you really want to do is avoid your users from having to have to recall too much information, or if they step away and come back, they should know what's the status. Similar to the first one I showed you guys with system status, but in this case, it's system status, but it's also removing a cognitive burden, because it's telling you, all right, I'm on the second step, I'm picking out my return flight. It's telling me the airports that are in question, the dates. It's also telling me in the beginning part that I've already chosen the cheapest flight, so I remember that. And so it just lays all the information out clearly. Another more extreme example is an example of an EMR, electronic medical record. So if you're in a more I don't know, high pace, dynamic work environment, critical things happening every moment, you may have nurses typing something into their record, and then they have to go leave the system for a bit, check with the doctor, check with the patient, come back. And so you should be very conscious of the navigation and what's laid out on the system, to be conscious of that. And then this is another example. There's all kinds of examples of this. It's pretty common. Twitter has a very restrictive character limit. And imagine if it didn't give you this. If it was oh, invalid tweet, and you're well, why is it invalid? And it either you don't know how many you're over by, or maybe it just completely deletes your whole carefully crafted message, and then you have to restart. It's okay, well, I'm not using this tool anymore. So I think that's, even though it's very simple, it's a pretty helpful error prevention method. So recognition rather than recall is the next one. It's very similar to the cognitive burden that I mentioned before, but basically you want to minimize memory load. So if you guys, I'm sure everybody knows that like recognizing something is a lot easier than having to recall it yourself. So you want to remove the burden of trying to make someone remember the entire thing from memory rather than presenting them with some information that can kind of like help them, which is why a lot of the time, you know, like, what's it called? Multiple choice tends to be easier for a lot of people than written answers because you're like, oh yeah, I can recognize this. So that tends to be a nicer experience for people. So again, with the search is another example. So like recent searches, frequent searches, if you're on a shopping site, you'll see like recent things you've looked at, or like you'll be typing and something. And now with what's it called? Machine learning, now like every site knows everything about you, so they're just going to like present you with all kinds of very customized information, which is very nice, but it's also a little freaky. So the next one is flexibility and efficiency of use. So this really, I mean, this is just really allowing people to be as efficient with their application as possible, whether it's like a beginner user or a tool to help improve a professional's experience. So for an example, it's the Mac operating system. I don't know if any of you guys have used these keyboard shortcuts, but okay, they give you your keyboard one way, pretty standardized keyboard. If I know a lot of developers, I don't know if anybody has done this before, switches their like control and caps lock, because if you use your keyboard a lot, I guess that I haven't done that, but my colleague does that. And so it either allows a more advanced user to have the efficiency, improve their own efficiency, or another example would be to like hide information that maybe a beginner user doesn't need to see, but maybe display it to you know, a more advanced user, like so having shortcuts and things like that. Then aesthetic and minimalistic design. So really this is just about presenting information like very simplified and in a way where the most important parts of the application are displayed prominently, which is a very nice feel when you have like a lot of space to breathe when you're looking at an application and you like clearly can see what the point of it is. So for example, a very extreme example is, I mentioned Medium before, it's a blogging tool. So you can go on there and you can read all kinds of articles, but if you're actually posting something, and it just looks like a blank piece of paper, which is like one of those other familiarity ones too, but you clearly see, oh, there's a button there, like I can click and it allows you to have some other icons, like you can insert a photo, or you can do other functions, but otherwise you can just type on the sheet. So it's very minimalistic, but you can see the necessary buttons. Another example is hierarchy. So Stripe is like a payment API similar to PayPal. You can build it into your application for payment processing, and they just present their information really nicely in a like nice hierarchy. A more obvious example would be with Trello. Does anybody use Trello? So they have, you know, you can list all your cards. You can also create projects in GitHub that look like Trello. And so you see the titles clearly on the top, but all the information that you've put in there is like underneath. So you're only seeing the most important information. You're not overwhelmed by like these detailed lists of things. We have a couple more left, so I know this is like a lot, but so we want to help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. So the most common error on the web is a 404. I'm sure everyone here has gotten one of those. This is like page not found. If you go to a site and it just says page not found, like, thanks, but what am I supposed to do with that? So, unfortunately, 404 error is pretty much, like, they don't do any of this stuff, which is what we should be doing. You should have an explicit, description about what happened. At least, it doesn't have to be super long, but at least tell the user what happened. And then it has to be human readable. So the server often, has in like a number, like a 500 error, or, that's not really, like, if you look it up, you'll realize, oh, this number error means this thing, but an everyday user isn't going to know or care to do that. So it should be human readable, not using codes, and it should be polite. It shouldn't be like making the user feel like they did something wrong either. And you want to be pretty precise about what happened and give constructive advice on how to fix it. I know that's a lot, but you can do it in a very, very simple way, like Dropbox. I like Dropboxes a lot. This is a 404 error, and it just basically, it says something went wrong, don't worry, your files are safe, and the Dropboxers have been notified. Check out our help center and forums for help or head back home, and it gives the links to go to those places. So that's pretty useful. I mean, it's giving you links to documentation. It's letting you know, like, it's not your fault. Like, your files are fine. But you're on the wrong page. And this one is GitHub 404. They have, like, in both cases, they customized their logo, which is cute. And it just says, like, this has happened to me a number of times if I'm not logged in. Or I'm trying to, like, somebody gives me a link to something that I don't have access to. Like, say I'm looking at a repository that I once had access to, and then I go back to it again, and I'm not. Like, it gives that error, but at least I kind of understand what that means. And then the last one is help and documentation. So even though it's better if the system can be used without documentation, it's helpful and necessary a lot of the time. So you want it to be easy to search, focused on the user's task, and have concrete steps, and not to be too long. Now, this is a little bit different than talking about, like, documentation for, like describing in depth, like, how to do certain things. Like, you'll find, like, API documentation that will need, like, all kinds of information listed out. I think what this is referring to specifically is, like, helping the user understand the tasks that they're performing. So, like, for example, on Airbnb site, again, now you have users, like, all over the world using this site in all different languages. And so the descriptions are a little small right now for you guys, but, like, email address is like, we won't share your private email address with other Airbnb users. And there's a link to learn more about that. And then for phone number, it says, this is only shared once you have confirmed booking with another Airbnb user. This is how we can all get in touch. And then preferred language, the messages will send you messages in this language. And then blah, blah, blah. And then there's, like, more about describing yourself. Like, gives you specific information about what you should put when you're describing yourself. So I think that's pretty useful. All right, before we get into the activity, anybody have any questions about any of those? Does anybody have something that comes to mind about, like, a horrible experience they had or a really good site that they like?
I think it's cool when you don't connect it with a dinosaur and cactus. And I realized recently that it's like a little game.
Which one?
Google, I think it is.
So if you have connections, they have like a mini game for you to play.
Oh, Google Form.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's like
Turn your Wi-Fi off and try it.
Okay. Cool, I'm going to check that out. Cool. Yeah, I haven't seen that. But I always appreciate, actually at Upstate Interactive, we just redesigned our website, and we're going to have somebody redesign, like, our logo for our 404 page to be, like, sitting and kneeling and crying or something. So, okay, so I know that was a lot of information. I have resources to go and review. You can also look at this. presentation. But if you want to read about each of the heuristics, they're Nielsen's heuristics, and there's a link available on the presentation. But I guess now would be a good time to take a quick 15-minute break, and then we'll come back and we're going to do this activity. So I'm going to stop the stream for a sec. And then think about like the site navigation, the functionality that they're showing you, and think about like I said, the purpose of the site, and then select maybe like 2 features to kind of run through, or more, but at least 2 main features, and then kind of run through the list of heuristics. And if you don't have my slides, or if you want like to know the how to like get to look at those 10 heuristics, I would just kind of go through each one and think about how they would apply, and kind of comment. So I guess by the end of it, I want to see you guys talk about like the purpose of the site, and then have a couple of features that you're gonna assess, and then at the end we'll try to go like around 8 o'clock, have each team present like what they evaluated, what they found from the sites that they looked at. Sound good? Cool.
You should screen record it and send it to Express. Jeff, this is like coder version. So sad. Okay. I never right now. Snap, 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 snap. So what the hell? I'm just gonna shoot my thing on Jeff, you need to check. Yeah, I was like, it's like there's a video on. Alright. This is really interesting. Okay. Do you know her? So, okay, so a little loading thing I thought. Wow. Yeah, it's not like right away, but it does. fine. Is that awesome? Alright, let's do the Google list. No, just kidding. Let's do one at a time. One at a time. That looks
That's so bad. That's so bad. Yeah, I didn't know that.
So, if we give an example again, you talk about what you said about representation versus
Yeah.
This reminds me of like Apple.
Right, you recognize the word when you would. So
it's all my
Oh, no, but it's just, Joe, you have to come in.
Oh, yeah.
Where is it for the yeah, the blank.
So that website would remember that. Right. As soon as I shows you a bunch of games, that still have the
It looks like curious. Wait.
on Amazon, you know? Very good user experience. They have to show it.
very
I know. So, like, I think when you hover over it, it will tell you, right?
This bottle last that would have been nice, but it's okay. And I'm always able to find it.
Girl, do this part.
I don't like the fact
Except their menus is side now, right? But it's again, how you said, line, shift up here, lock in stone. I see that's not up, right? Is that up? Is that up? Consistency and stickers. Oh, yeah, I know.
Now you actually have
Look at, watch this, man. Watch. Alright, ready? So wait, we're gonna go. Wait, I didn't do it yet. Ready? So responsive. Menu height. Soup.
what are the things here?
but see that box should always be
From the videos?
Yeah.
I don't even know what videos this is about.
Okay. You scroll.
Oh! Okay, cool. Wow. So we can give it a 10 out of 10.
Okay. So as
was good. That's cool, Cash. I never tried to do that. Usually when I pick the video clips on it, it's yeah, that's true. That's super convenient. Yeah. Good tip.
She said just so.
Yeah, that would be actually
It definitely doesn't.
I would
Basically uses.
so you're supposed to be like you're not fully committed. Yeah, me too. Yeah, that was like the now search. I think it's pretty standard. This isn't really how the website is. Also, what other really close to something
Like that. It'll say search results. Sorry. So it doesn't like that.
right. Actually, they do this though. YouTube. So if I want to go to it gives you suggestions. I know. I really like her. I know she's I don't know. I'm really a fan. I'm gonna drag my boyfriend. Yeah, she's gonna I don't like going to this one.
Yeah.
What's the age concert in the summer? You wouldn't bring her to talk about them. Yeah. Yeah, that's always weird things going on right now.
Do we have to have all 10?
You can try to. Yeah, go through each one.
If a site doesn't have it, can we say it doesn't have this?
Yeah.
So that it gets.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm curious whether there would be a way to find it, but I guess I'd like to see what if you think there isn't one on there, you can say that.
Yeah. That's a good point you guys mentioned, like the age. Oh, maybe it's take a look at a small 5-minute video that we probably have problems with, but it's like age restricted and see how they I don't know, wash my hands. I feel like they're just a app. Like, no, you can. There's a whole, but it's just an app. Yeah, because I think they can control what goes into the app. It's hard to control the app. But yeah, my dad's friends with me, and you can filter it by age.
So on top of that,
yeah, and so like, I can also lock it, so like you can only use it for like 15 minutes, and then it locks your hours, and that kind of stuff. So you can like completely monitor. You can report stuff that you can just interpret each level. Really, she doesn't really use it that much anymore because I pretended I lost it. They lost the whole idea. I pretty much let it go. And then I told her, well, there's like some very videos. She doesn't watch it anymore. So she doesn't see yeah. She was like, oh yeah,
I didn't hear about the I did say that.
on YouTube. Don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe
Really good.
right.
Error prevention. Is there like filters? Yeah. Apparently there was things with embedding.
That's a good place to talk about.
Already uploaded video. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
One thing I like
so
about
it
it
has
is,
um,
there used to be
so
I have a friend right. Not necessarily. I still like sometimes have my website as well.
So
It's hard. I wonder how much.
So
There's like so many things.
so it fits, so it passes recognition rather than
I think no, it says here. It says custodians and deposits.
So we went through 6. Do you want to mention anything about 7, 8?
Or it might be just that.
Well, 7.
Yeah.
Aesthetic
It doesn't grade them out. It just doesn't show up. It'd be nice to get grade out.
That would
It gives you recognized diagnosis. How's it going, Zoe? How's the commute from Rochester?
It's not bad. Oh, it's Zoe, by the way.
Zoe, yeah. That's what I thought. But
Yeah.
then you had Zoe on it.
Oh,
You
it's
go,
spelled
like-
out. It's spelled that way.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. It happens sometimes. I think that Jesse was calling Bill for a while,
So, yeah.
but it's okay. It's because it's a Greek pronunciation. Yeah, I'm just working on my little homework. Short homework exercise for them. But seems like
It's going
I still have it streaming.
Oh, yeah, but like it's. Oh, you're like muted. Oh.
I wonder if I can mute it.
Okay, flexibility, efficiency, is fast.
That's a good question.
Cause
Then, like, the point of streaming is to like listen. So I don't think maybe that app doesn't give you the option.
Yeah. Could stop it.
Even though
Just like
So there's got to be a way, I feel.
Okay. So I guess what we can do is just like, so I guess there's a team here, team there, team there, team 5. So we could just take a few minutes to go through and go through, tell me like the site you picked and just go through each one of those, and we'll start here, I guess. Did you write it down like a presentation? Okay, then you don't have to.
I thought we were gonna like plug it up and be able to point it out.
Oh, we can do that. No, I can pull it up on my computer.
How are we gonna explain?
Right. I was gonna say I can't show you guys the page.
Yeah, one sec. Because I can share my desktop. All right, so I guess we can, yeah, just let me know the website, and you can kind of guide me and go through.
It's presidentialcity.com.
Or if you want to come up and use my computer, you can.
Yeah.
You don't have to get up, it's fine, I'll do it.
Awesome, thank you. Sure.
All right. Is it? Oh, you can't see it. All right, this will be a little.
Yes, that is it. Right? It's pretty already.
Where'd it go?
So this is a website of an apartment building that I lived at in Philadelphia. And yeah, I know, right? It was nice.
Wait, I'm just gonna get rid of this for a sec. Why isn't it doing full screen? Well, whatever. Here you go. Oh. There you go. I know how to use Google. It's a little hard from like, try doing things from an angle. It changes your whole perspective.
Yeah, so I like how these are like always moving, and they're kind of like always moving on this website. Like the button sort of down at the bottom is sort of like disappears, but if you like put your mouse over it, it like lights up, and that's like that's cool. If you click on it.
So what do you know what the goal of the site is?
Oh yes, they rent out apartments.
Oh, it's what you said.
It's
Okay.
like a luxury apartment. So here you've got like the different buildings that you can rent at, and we've got the menu bar on the top. And if you make it smaller, that collapses to like a cool menu bar that like transforms when you hover over it. Yeah, there you go. Very responsive. I also like the black sleek luxury design. Like the way the site looks and feels is exactly the way that you feel like money. You can click on like discover in one of the buildings. And then check out view availability to bring you into how you can sort of like search for different like spectrum sizes, price ranges, and move-in availability.
And like, right, so here, like I would say, in 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom, whatever you want to rent.
It will highlight where they're available.
And it actually show you
Yeah, so that's a good example of matching with real world.
and it will show you if you just click on one of the floors, it'll show you the inside of the floor plan of like the unit that's available. And if you click on the one that's
I've never seen an apartment site like this before.
really
It's pretty cool.
it's pretty cool.
I guess it's not like, is it clear? Mm. Yeah. I guess.
Similar with the price range, like if there aren't any in that price range, like just nothing happens, rather than well, there aren't any in that price range.
Right, because not allowing you to choose people, blocking it up, you can't choose that up because there aren't any else.
Do you think that that's helpful or could be improved? Any other heuristics that you could comment on? What'd you say?
If I'm going to start an application, and if there was a unit that was available in April and in May, and you had started for April, if you could tell you, this is my problem, so hey, this is for April, and sure if you want to do it.
Mm.
And it didn't give you the option to change like the month to May.
Right. Like you have to close the whole pop-up window.
Oh.
And then go back here and like sort of start over.
Oh, yeah, that's a little frustrating.
Yeah.
I need to get rid of something. Cool. All right. Thanks for sharing that. I think that was good. All right, should we go to the next group? Yeah. What's your website? What is it? Go. Geo. What? Oh. Oh. Okay.
So, as you can see, the purpose of the site is self-description.
That's pretty clear.
So the first one, visibility of system status. When you go, if you look up step now, if you click stop now, kind of gives you that kind of loading bar, and it's really quick.
Yeah. What bar?
If you refresh, it's really quick.
Oh, loading. Yeah. So it's got a loading indicator. That's good. ABC camo is a thing. What's different?
Different. Baby talk. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna give you right there. If you go back and if you look through the shoes, that pops up. The language for the matches between the system and the real world. The language is very clear.
Did you mean on the other page or this one?
the other thing, was it more too? Very precise. Gives you the language, the phrases are not uncommon. As since the people who are really into shoes, they know what they know, the shoe and the nickname for.
Yeah, I might not know them as well as.
Is this a chain or is this like a site for selling? Like someone- Oh, cool.
Cool.
But it looks very good.
And
Maybe it'll be my sign. Or like all signs
did you guys have any other things that you noticed?
it's very upscale retail.
The size thing is recognition rather than recall. You can store your size preferences in your shoe preference.
Can you guys see that? So it has.
Oh, you have to click the one that's on top.
What?
Scroll back up.
Oh, okay. They were grayed out. Okay.
So it kind of guides you through. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Clear stuff.
I don't know. Maybe Gucci. So yeah, it's like kind of nice. You can like clearly see, but you can scroll back up if you need to. Wait, it's showing it on the side. It's also system status too.
Oh, yeah. It's flexible. You can use that minimalistic design.
Yeah, and a minimalistic too. Pretty good site. That. Anything else? It's kind of hard to like force errors to happen, but as you were saying, but you did find, you guys found, they didn't have very good error messages on the other site. If like someone clicked on, I found the visibility a little bit hard, but like overall it looked really nice. Yeah. But with your search, there was some, like you got good results and it would tell you if you didn't find any results, so that's helpful. Anything else? Are you guys good? Oh, where is it? Oh, FAQ, yeah. Oh, yeah. Anything else? Good? Yeah, that was a good one. All right, next group. What did you guys do? It's gonna be hard to find anything that wrong with Amazon. They have a lot of developers. Yes, you guys can just run through each thing that you did. Are you looking at it like if I click on an item, then the reviews?
Yeah.
Let's do like Amazon Smart Plug. There's the questions and answers, and then the reviews. So what is that relating to? You guys have any other ones? Why can't I like use the drop down? I saw it. Do I have to go back? Oh, I can switch it here. Okay. Just say their prime is a little dangerous.
They're what? Yeah.
Do you need me to sign in? But you were saying if I'm signed in, you can like just easily remove the item from the cart. Mm-hmm.
Error prevention. I think we also talked about that let's review your chart where it has the verb before you actually make the purchase. Just 2 days ago, I pushed order and then wanted to add to it and forget it. But, didn't allow that. But it's designed seemingly to prevent ordering mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So often.
Mm.
recognition rather than recall. I can see my browsing history and also my purchase history is different. And those things are in the same place always. Usually when I reorder, I go into purchase history and kind of hunt something down.
Yeah.
They don't make me recall the exact product brand. Vitamin D.
Yeah, their search is really good.
Right there, and it's also visible. It looks the same as the product. Thankfully. Purchase or browsing history. Recognition, flexibility, and efficiency of use. I had a question. Accelerators, unseen by the novice user, may often speed up interaction with the expert user. So I thought the accelerator might be my purchase history, if that's correct. Because I looked there and I could find something quickly. Accelerator might be.
I guess, yeah, if you're like a more frequent user, like if you have a Prime membership,
Right.
you might have features more accessible to you, or
Is that what it meant?
yeah, I could see that. I could see that
But
being.
what does the other efficiency of accelerator unseen by novice user? What could I be? I guess that's a question. What could I be missing? Because I kind of just tried to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to apply to every single website, but I can see that. I can see that being the case because with Amazon, it's like about, they have their membership and they'll have people who are users that they want like to make as easy as possible to like one-click order and things like that. So. Whereas like if you're going to Amazon for the first time, you're not going to see it.
Yeah, you might not know your browsing history is actually there.
Yeah.
Aesthetic and minimalist design. I don't find it all that. It's too busy.
Yeah, actually.
Is it?
It's busy.
It's busy. It's so busy. Sometimes they change it up, and I have to hunt for things, especially in Audible or like whatever some of my monthly subscription services, like Prime Reading. They've been changing the names left and right every month, and I'm like getting angry. And I actually just put my account on hold. Maybe that was part of me getting angry. I don't know. 9. Users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. Got this far. There were no errors. When you, there's usually sometimes errors with the words.
Yeah, it's okay if you didn't like. You can't come across everything just doing a browse, but.
Going back to slow that, and it also lets you, save your addresses, so you don't have to constantly type it out.
That's a good point. Yeah, that would be like when you put your address in.
Right.
Saves it for you. I might want to see.
And you can also track your order. That's another thing. It's always visible so you can see where the product where it is.
Really? Well, we can move on, but I think that would be that's a useful error prevention tactic. I'm not getting it yet. It might be taking a minute. So, did you guys have any other things? Documentation or anything else? No? Okay. Well, we're getting close on time, so we can move on to you guys and then you guys.
So, like, I guess the first thing is visibility. If you click on video, at the very top, like right under the search, it'll like have like a red like loading line, like just click on any video.
Okay.
So
I don't know what that is.
I don't know either. So so there's like a red loading line, and then the line on the actual video, it'll like tell you like buffering, how far it's gotten, like ahead, something like that. It's like system status, basically. Um, oh yeah. Just language, I guess. There's visuals. Obviously, the purpose is pretty clear. You can search for anything and watch a video. I mean, real world, I guess. Real people.
I guess if you think about, like, does it make you feel like you're, like, browsing? I don't know, I was thinking about, they use an example of, like, browsing in Netflix, feeling like you're in a,
Sometimes,
I don't know what it's, maybe it doesn't really feel like anything to me, really.
no, not really.
Well, I feel like the black is goes under the screen.
Well, it'll give you full screen.
Like a TV screen.
Yeah. Pastor showed us this too. So if you full screen and then you scroll, you can still scroll in full screen, which I had no idea that you can do that.
That's useful. That's useful.
Yeah, so we thought it was like, I feel like that's the user experience. You don't have to exit out of your full screen to like check something or like, I don't know, look at related videos. The related videos will like show you like what's up next, like something that you might also be interested in. That's kind of nice. What else? I'm jumping all over the place. User control and freedom. I mean, you can stop and start. You can report things if you don't like them. In the search, it's a very responsive website, and it's pretty minimal. I guess even on the homepage, it just shows there's like basic colors, basic font. The side nav can hide, so it makes it less clutter. If you click like the hamburger menu, it'll hide it, which I thought was nice because I don't like seeing all that extra stuff. It shows you like your subscription.
Yeah.
Like update, like recent updates.
We did actually find a way to get an error in YouTube. Caitlin tried to upload a photo to search a video, which is an unsupported file type.
Oh.
So it does give you an error message.
What does it look like? What does it say?
Oh, so it says like the video you tried to upload might not be the right file type. Click here to learn about accepted files.
Okay, so that's good error.
Yeah. It was very basic. It wasn't fun, like, game or anything.
No fail.
But it was informational. It was like, oh crap, like if I download the job, if I try to upload the job move, wouldn't upload. Why not? And then you have to like,
Okay.
With recognition rather than recall, it will remember your search history, but you can also toggle that option off if you want to. So it doesn't have to remember your
In settings?
Yeah, so you have to go into like the Google stuff, and it's
Oh.
a bit of a search, but like, you can turn off your search history.
Okay.
You can also, if you like start typing, you can click remove next to specific searches, like say you search for like Sesame Street, I don't know. And you've already searched for it, there'll be like a little like, it'll be purple, like a clicked link would be. And then if you,
Oh yeah, I saw the loading on the top.
yeah. And then if you like,
So say I go back and then I do that again, it'll do what?
if you retype, I don't know if you like retype.
I didn't save my. It saved what I typed when I pressed back. I don't know. Maybe that's a nice feature. I'm not sure.
If you retype it, it should come up with like a.
Oops.
I don't know, so maybe we didn't click on something. But it'll be like purple and you can click remove next to it. So go remove thing and it'll do that.
All right, let's try this again.
I don't have a 5-year-old.
So you can remove it from your.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do have like a watch history.
right in your window. It doesn't take you to an external page. That I thought was really interesting, very convenient. So that way you can just type help wherever you are.
Oh yeah, that is nice. So what does that do? Cool. Awesome. Thank you. All right, guys. Last group. What did you guys do?
So we took a look at Dana's employer website.
What is the name? AXA? I can't see my...
So some of the things noticed on this page was scroll up, that there's no search bar up there. Now on this screen is a but it would be better if there was a search bar in the upper left-hand corner because you have to find the program finder. But on the laptop side page, it was bottom left. Or maybe that's the staff.
Oh, here's the program finder.
Yeah, if you go to staff information, that's what we were looking at from the point of view whether employees could get all these information.
Where is the staff page?
All the way down, you can scroll through staff information. That was one of the things we didn't like because those buttons and links in the gray and the footer to the right.
I can't find it.
Four times that.
Oh, okay.
It's so small. That was one of the things we did not like. Well, that's where we were looking.
Okay.
So when you hit search, there is a search bar. A search bar appears up top on the right. So when you hit search compliance. Yeah, all the buttons seem very
Oh, here.
Yeah.
So the search doesn't appear until you click on that page?
Yes, and that's an unexpected
When you click on search.
Yeah.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah, so that was
Dana, go to account, fix it.
So which one would that be under? Which heuristic would that be under?
Oh, that is under consistency standards.
Yeah.
So, so as far as the match between system and real world, in general, when we went around this webpage, we did feel like the language was familiar, and we also believe that it leveraged familiar and real world information. So it just, the language is in terms that pretty much
Would make sense to your
it
company
makes sense.
and the people using it.
Yeah, and then let's see, do and maybe. So as far as user control and freedom, we actually looked at one of the forms. So if you go back to that staff link, or just hit your back button. So under staff information, and we also really like that the page is easy to look at. They use a consistent layout, no matter, well, once you get past the main page, the consistency of the layout is very predictable, which makes it easy to find information. So you can also...
You say once you get past the main page?
Once you get that access. Yeah, once you get past the index page.
Wait, I want to go back to the front page for a second. What is the goal of the site?
The goal of the site is to provide the user with information for people with developmental disabilities and mental health disabilities to find information and resources.
I mean, it does have like the program finder here and some direct links in the main navigation or the header. So that's good. The staff section, you'd have to be seeking that out, but that might not be the main goal of the site.
But even with the program finder, like usually things like that and that search button, I think I'm just like used to seeing those types of help items appear prominently towards the top of the page as opposed to the middle.
Okay. Do you guys have any other?
Generally, error prevention. We went to the.
So if you click back on the staff link, the staff information link at the bottom, and then if you go to order business cards, and then a form appears, and then I'll let you talk.
Yeah, we were just noticing that when you go to the phone number, phone number, you just type in, and it's just a number. String is the number. When you go to the fax, it gives you.
I wonder if it. Oh, interesting.
So when the fax, it gives you that more intuitive format that you're expecting. So it actually suggests it under the text box, the phone number, but it doesn't actually give it to you. So that's inconsistent.
I guess it gives you an error after you submit, but that's not very good prevention.
No, and then also if you go to quantity and it tells you to please enter value between 50 and 500, we typed in 600 and you also got an error message.
Which one?
Down at the bottom where it says quantity, sets of 25, and underneath the text box it says please enter a value between 50 and 500. So just type in 600 and you'll see the error code that comes up. And you hit the submit button.
Oh yeah. Good. Anything else? All right, guys. I know we went a little over, but it was really interesting to see how you guys approach that. So I was gonna just come up with like a really short homework, but I might not because it's a little over, and we might just do an extra activity tomorrow. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Yeah, it's kind of an old school style, I guess.